welcome to the Advantages of Age Micro Hot Tub Beer Tasting. Sponsored, God, that was a mouthful. Sponsored by Borough Wine and Beers. This is our very first sponsored hot tub event, and I'm extremely excited about it, not least of which because I know absolutely nothing about beer, and I'm with two of the biggest experts in the UK who know more about beer than certainly all of us put together. So tonight we're going to be tasting some beers. John and Jane are going to be telling us a bit more about them, and then we're going to enjoy ourselves after that. Not that this won't be enjoyable, thank you very much. So first, just wanted to introduce the people in the hot tub. John Porter.
Hi, I'm John. I'm a qualified accredited beer sommelier and a beer journalist and writer. I've been writing about beer for 20 plus years, so hopefully we'll know a little bit about it tonight. We've got an interesting range here tonight, some London beers, so looking forward to it.
Jane.
Hi everybody, I'm Jane. I'm also an accredited beer sommelier. I'm a drinks educator, a journalist as well, and I produce and host events, and I go to the pub quite a lot and drink lots of beer, and I'm going to be talking about it tonight.
And then we've got our two guests who are Advantages of Age readers. Lindsay Wesker.
Hello, my name's Lindsay. I'm a writer. I write fiction and non-fiction. I am a radio broadcaster as well. I got a weekly show on a fantastic radio station called My Soul.
I'm a television and film producer. I specialise in social commentary, so I'm kind of an issues-driven person. Anything I can get on a soapbox about, I'm there. And I love beer.
Excellent, it's a good start.
So we're going to start with John, and we've got Matt over here who's going to be pouring the beer, and you can see actually what kinds of beers that we've got. And if you fancy commenting, and Matt is going to be operating Facebook at the same time for us, so he's going to be feeding through questions to us. So any questions you have, just put them in the comments, and Matt's going to relay them to us. So first, John, okay, what are we going to have first?
Well, if the system's working, I can refer to my extremely waterproof notes, and we're going to start with a lager from Pillar's Brewery in Walthamstow, which is an untraditional lager, and if the system is working, once Matt's poured these out, he might even be able to post the tasting notes on Facebook. But Jane, it's an untraditional lager, but a lager nonetheless. Do you want to tell us a bit about the lager style?
Yes. If you think of beer as being a tree, so the family tree of beer has 3 branches with beer. You've got lagers, which include Pilsners, Hells, Dunkels, Schwarzbiers, Viennas, lots of different styles of lagers. Most people are familiar with the Pilsner style, so those are the brands like Heineken, Stella, Carling, they're types of Pilsner. There's another branch of the family tree called ales, and we're going to be drinking some ales tonight, some pale ales, India pale ales and porters. And then the third branch is a branch that most people have never tasted before. It's lambic, which is sour beer. Now we are going to drink a sour beer tonight, but it's not a lambic, and I'm going to explain a little bit more about that when we come to taste the sour. But we're trying to show a different range of beers here tonight, because people think of beer as just being Stella or a pint of London Pride or a pint of Guinness. There are over 140 different styles of beer. Thank you, Matt. With the lager, this is what's known as an untraditional lager. So I would say this is a Pilsner, but it's made with New World hops. So the hops come from the USA, giving it big aromatics on the nose. Now when you taste beer, you do exactly the same as you do with wine tasting. You look at it, yum. That's a bit hazy and cloudy. Very typical of modern trendy breweries nowadays. Unfiltered beer, unfined, so you get cloudiness. All the flavour stays in the beer, it's not filtered out. Now what you could do is put your hand over the top and swirl it so you don't spill any, and then stick your nose in it. Now if you smell beer, that's good. That means you can actually smell something.
But if you can try and find some adjectives that aren't hoppy or malty, so if you get a fruit flavour off it, or a herbal flavour, or a floral flavour, just shout them out. Shout out some adjectives.
Smells sweet.
Sweet,
yeah,
and florally.
Yeah.
I would say florally.
Yeah.
Okay,
there are no wrong adjectives. Everyone's olfactory systems are different, especially when you're sitting in a hot tub. So, but
Now,
And
I
that-
get pine as well
Yeah.
with that one. That's very characteristic of an American hop. This is made with American hops, by the way. Big citrus characters with a lot of American hops and a lot of pine as well.
Yeah, I've got some citrus.
That
Yeah.
is lovely.
Now,
Really citrusy.
Yeah, very refreshing. You were saying earlier, Lindsay, I think you were saying that you really love refreshing beers.
This is very refreshing.
Refreshing.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's very
This is
light.
really refreshing.
No, I mean,
And what's this-
I could drink
yes.
Coke or something else.
Gallons of it.
And what is this
Maybe
called?
you will.
What are we drinking?
This,
What are we drinking?
this is Pillars Brewery untraditional lager. Pillars Brewery of Walthamstow untraditional lager.
So, and what does that mean, untraditional? What does that mean?
It means that they've decided to come up with a brand that sounds interesting, I suspect.
I'd say because it's got New World hops in
Yeah.
it. So most people, when they brew pilsners, you want a balance of sweet malts,
Yeah.
the malted barley. That's one of the ingredients of beer, and the hops that they use with traditional pilsners are not aromatic. They give a bitterness, but you don't get any aromatic. So the fact that they've put aromatic hops in here as well. Hops are flowers, by the way, that give bitterness, aroma, and flavour. They're also a natural preservative. So I'd say that's probably
Yeah,
why
so
they call it
they've got a wider range of flavours, as Jane says. The SARS hop, which is traditional sort of hop, SAAZ, that you would get in a Pilsner style or a Czech style beer, is very bitter, and there's more going on in this beer than that. So they've attempted to come up with something that's going to appeal to the modern sort of craft beer style,
Yeah.
wider range of flavours.
This is extremely drinkable.
Yeah.
Enormously quaffable.
Can you get grapefruit as well?
I've gone
Has anybody
quiet.
getting
It's
grapefruit? Quite
very
bitter
nice. Yeah.
grapefruit on the palate as well. Bitter grapefruit. I'm getting it in the aftertaste.
I got a kind of shot of banana off the nose, but it's not there in the flavour. It's in when you taste, yeah. And then the other thing you're looking for is how long the flavour stays with you, the aftertaste or the hang, as we call it in beer. And this one I think stays around for a while. And that's because of the extra hops. Yes, Jane?
Yes. Now, another thing about lager-style beers, the water is absolutely crucial when you're making lagers. Well, it's crucial with any beer. It's the biggest ingredient in beer. But with lager beers, the water that you use is very low in mineral salts, and so this ends up giving the beer a very light mouthfeel. Now, you'll probably think, when you compare the pale ales, you'll find that the mouthfeel, or the mouthfeel's fuller because there's more mineral salts in the water with ale. Now, this also adds to the crispness that you get with a pilsner like this.
Right.
So you were saying refreshing, you've all said refreshing and very drinkable, and that's very crisp, and that's really characteristic of a lager style beer. So this is, I love this, I think this is great.
And are there awards for beers?
There are many awards for beers. There's the oldest is the International Beer and Cider competition, but there's the International Beer Challenge. Every region, every country has its own awards. In this country, you have the Champion Beer of Britain, which is run by the Campaign for Real Ale Camera, which is very much celebrating our style of beer, cask beer in this country. But there are many awards, in the same way as there is with wine. That every brewer is keen to win awards. Obviously, you put it on the label. It's another way of selling your beer. In a very crowded market, and beer is getting more crowded all
Absolutely.
the time. So many more beers being launched every month, let alone every year. That anything that gives you an advantage, like an award, is great.
Yeah.
If any of the viewers are London-based and are around Walthamstow, this brewery Pillars is in Walthamstow. It's on an industrial estate, which also there's a brewery called Wildcard, which is fantastic. One of the older, smaller indies. There's also the Neon Museum called God's Own Junkyard. Are you familiar with that? Amazing. And also a gin distillery. So I can't remember what the gin's called. But if you want to make a trip up to Walthamstow, then you can't go wrong with this industrial estate where this brewery is.
Yeah, Walthamstow is somewhere you can do a drinks pilgrimage these days.
You would have said that 3 years ago.
5 years ago,
mate.
it was only the dog track and no other reason to go to Walthamstow at all, wasn't it?
So should we move on to the next one?
We should. So if we pass Matt our glasses, you can rinse them out for us. And
You polished that one off, didn't you?
Yeah.
It's light.
No, I'm not letting that go to waste.
we're going to water Suzanne's plants with some of the beer. Beer is very good for plants, so we can and then rinse out the glasses. And as Matt starts pouring, we can talk about our next style, which is it's from Bianca Road. No one is to say Bianca.
It's impossible not to say.
It's Bianca Road in Peckham Rye, so a good South London brewer, a fairly recent addition to the range of brewers in London, and it's an American pale ale which is 4.5% ABV. So we're moving up slightly. The first one we had, it's the same ABV as the last one, so 4.5% alcohol.
So what does that mean?
Alcohol
per
by
vol-
volume.
by-
Alcohol by volume is
by
the
volume.
ABV. Yes, yeah. ABV, yeah.
So that's how quickly you'll get drunk, essentially.
But the thing to bear in mind is that people do shop beer by ABV, and then suddenly when you're walking the aisles, people look and say, "Oh, it's 5-6%. That's a strong beer." I think a bottle of wine is up to 14-16%.
Yeah.
So beer is a much more refreshing, much more drinkable drink than wine, and even ciders tend to be a little bit stronger. So
Are we able to talk about that Stella thing that we were talking about earlier?
Well,
for hardened Stella drinkers, it might be alarming news, really.
But we did reveal earlier on that the ABV of Stella has recently been reduced for various reasons, including...
That's a world exclusive, by the way. Advantages of Age world exclusive. The ABV of Stella has been reduced.
I mean, but it's enough to still keep the wife beating going on, surely. Surely.
I don't believe it's compulsory.
Okay,
Yeah.
fair enough.
So this is made by
This is Bianca Road Brewery
Bianca Road in Peckham.
in Peckham,
Very trendy Peckham.
and this is an American Pale Ale, which is a kind of a hybrid term. Jane, do you want to talk us through what an American Pale Ale is?
Yes. Now, people in Britain will be familiar with the style of beer pale ale, which in its truest sense is a pint of bitter. So if you drink London Pride or Marston's Pedigree, you are actually drinking a pale ale. An American pale ale is that style, which is bitter flavoured and quaffing drinks, but it's made with American hops. And again, we're going to get big aromatics here. So if you just stick your nose in it, swirl it round in the glass, stick your nose in it. I'm not going to give you any clues, but you tell me what you smell, because this has got different aromatics, this one. Different varietals of hops will give you different flavours.
I'm going off it, but let's have some.
Lemon.
Okay.
Again, sort of citrus notes.
Citrusy.
It's I'm not getting particularly very hoppy off this one.
Not off the aroma, no, but
No.
but I mean, I'm going to say more grapefruit than lemon.
Grapefruit,
okay.
yeah.
Yeah, that's-
It's definitely.
And I'm
With-
getting like sherbety orange sherbet and
Yeah.
mango and things like that.
Or a quite floral
Mango.
kind of
That's what it is.
Yeah,
It's
mango.
mango.
like a tangerine or clementine,
Yes.
one of those
Yeah.
quite florals or orange flavours. Yes. Yeah.
There aren't any mangoes or oranges in the beer, it's the varietal of hop that gives that really big characteristic. Having said that, some brewers do now put mango flavour in, and they might even put orange or passion fruit and things like that. But hops, if they're from the New World, will give you enormous amounts of flavour and real huge aromatics as well, in a way that British hops can't because of the terroir, you know, that word that the French use. It's to do with the soils, it's the amount of rainfall we get here, it's also the amount of sunlight that we get. English hops, very subtle, very complex, but they don't give you huge punch on the nose like this.
So let's let our guests tell us what they're getting off that. So what are we thinking about that?
Oh, I got a really bitter aftertaste. It was again, it's a light beer. It's very quaffable, but the hang, as you would call it, seems to be quite pervasive.
Stays with you
It
a lot.
stays with you a long
Yeah.
time. But it's really nice. It's really nice.
And you have got some. Let's see what you think first. Come on.
Well, I mean, I'm a lager drinker, and not an ale drinker, and this definitely tastes like ale.
Yeah.
I mean, I know it's supposed to taste like ale, but it really tastes like ale. But this is the kind of ale I think I could drink, actually.
And that ale flavour, you mean, that's the kind. There's an earthiness to the hops, and there is a very strong, dry, bitter hop character which you would associate with a lot of British ales, and that's carried over when the Americans took our pale ale style.
I mean, it might sound banal, but it tastes really nice.
Yeah.
It's like it really tastes
Well,
good.
good. It's supposed to taste nice. That's at its heart, that is what the brewer was going for. He wanted it to taste nice. You know.
Yeah, but the thing
tastes
is, like,
nice.
I would never drink now.
Yeah.
I mean, I would never ever order now. In fact, the one beer that I love more than anything is a wheat beer, which we don't have at all here, and that's pretty much all I drink. But this is so. It's quite light though, even though it is an ale, and it's very. And again, it's got that freshness to it.
Yeah.
And I suppose it's because it's got that citrusy side to it that it's very palatable. You know?
And it's interesting what Lindsay was saying, that the ale is clearly a turn-off for some people. They expect something that is going to be darker and heavier, and perhaps
heavy.
And people may have had bad experiences with cask beers. only relatively recently that all the major brewers have got their quality top notch. And today you'd struggle to find a bad pint. You still find them here or
I
there.
mean, this probably isn't a hybrid of lager and ale, but it kind of
Tastes like it.
kind of tastes like it is a hybrid of lager and ale.
It's fair to say, Jen, is it that genuinely people are going for more golden, lighter beers? That's a style that people are doing. So.
Very much so. And most traditional brewers particularly will have a golden ale in their repertoire now, and I think that golden ale is probably selling much more than the traditional bitters. So people are changing the flavour profile now, not necessarily wanting lighter things, but just wanting more flavour, because with the bitters, I find you get a very boring, woody, flat bitterness. Whereas this is so juicy and so flavoursome, and it just makes you want to drink more of it.
But by saying it tastes like lager, have I offended? Have I offended the ale makers? Because they obviously do ale.
Yeah.
They don't do lager. They don't want to do lager. So haven't I offended them by saying it? No.
No.
Okay.
If you buy the beer, you're not offending anybody. So.
and if you enjoy the beer, they've done their job, haven't they? That's the whole point of it. And I think there's some quite interesting, but there's some sort of earthy, spicy, peppery notes on the back of that, which just stay with you a while, which I think is really nice. Will be slightly carbonated, yes. And not that some of that will be from the natural fermentation process. Some of it will be it could be added, at the canning stage.
Lovely, thank you. I'm reluctant to hand this over to you.
Can I just say something about glassware? You'll notice that we're drinking out of wine glasses, and depending on the glassware that you're drinking out of, it will change your perception of what you're drinking. So we're suddenly looking at this and getting all the flavours out of it and really cherishing it and thinking a lot about it. If we were drinking out of a pint glass, we'd just be glug, glug, glug and not even think.
Should we drink more beer out of those kind of glasses?
I do, but in this country, if you buy draft beer, you have to buy it in increments of pints.
Oh, right.
Third,
You could-
half,
yeah.
2/3 or a pint. You can't have it in a glass like that. What I do, I do drink pints, by the way, and sometimes John has seen me many times, having a pint, but sometimes I'm in the mood for having it in a glass like that. So I'll buy a pint, drink a drop out of it, and then pour it into an empty wine glass.
There was a change in the law. It was about 5 years ago, Jen, where it became legal to serve beer in a 2/3 measure in a pub, and a lot of brewers created some lovely sort of branded stemmed glassware in the 2/3 measure, but it kind of fell at the hurdle that generally pubs don't have room for another set of glasses. So although the glassware is out there and you can serve it in a 2/3 measure, very few pubs would have a 2/3 as a measure on offer, simply for logistical reasons.
I've noticed Leffe produce a glass like that, which I've had in pubs, which is like
Very elegant.
A bowl-shaped one that we would think of as a wine glass style. Yeah, that's a
it's
classic
kind of
Leffe
like
glass.
that. Yeah,
And,
for sure.
and a lot of Belgian beers have their own unique glass style. Jane, do you want to talk a bit about Belgian beers and their glasses?
Yes. Well, I mean, Belgium and Belgian beer culture, it's second to none. It was recently awarded the UNESCO
World Heritage.
Heritage for the culture of and the history of Belgian brewing, which has got a lot to do with monks, nuns, and that's why you get a lot of chalices when you drink a Belgian beer, because they revere the beer. So they will have a different beer, a different glass for different beers, which are designed to get the different flavours or the most out of the beer. And in Belgium, they are more about quality, not quantity.
Yeah.
You know, we are obsessed with our pints here, and we've probably all done it. You've had a taste of beer and you go, oh, well, I like it, but I couldn't drink a pint of it.
Yeah.
Now, in Belgium, you're not supposed to drink pints of the beer.
You shouldn't feel you have to drink a pint.
Really?
Yeah.
So, you know, it is a completely different culture to us. It's a cafe culture, it's a sit down and drink, whereas in Britain we're very much vertical drinking, and then we become a horizontal drinking. You know, standing up, glug, 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 not eating anything, you know, just having liquid bread, beer, instead of eating. So our culture of beer is completely different, and we don't respect our beer the way they do in Belgium, I don't think.
And do they not serve it in the same measures then in Belgium?
No, the pint is very much a British thing.
Right.
The imperial pint, anyway.
Yeah.
No, different
measures.
Almost every beer will have its own unique glassware, so it will be the measure there. But yeah, the bottles come in very similar sizes. But as Jane was saying, there's kind of that monastic tradition for a very long time. Beer was there were two traditions. Beer was billed brewed an awful lot in monasteries, and part of that was for religious reasons. It was part of the feasting. Part of it was because of fast days, and although you weren't allowed to eat, you were allowed to drink. So the monks got very good at brewing some interesting beers. But at the same time, there was also beer brewing going on domestically on farms and things. Jane, do you want to talk a bit about that? Because it was very much the woman's preserve, wasn't it, the beer in those days?
Yes. I mean, for thousands of years, women were the primary brewers of beer because, as John says, something made in the home, it wasn't made in breweries. The farmhouse tradition of brewing as well is not only to brew beer for your family, but to brew beer for the people working on the land.
Wow.
And in Belgium and France, they would brew a beer called Saison, which is a very popular style nowadays. Very dry, bone dry actually. And it was a beer that was brewed in season, and it was brewed to give the farm workers something to drink while they were harvesting or working on the land.
And the ingredients in it would change from season to season. So you get a fruit beer in summer and perhaps more of a herbal beer in the autumn, and depending what was available.
Can I confess that I have belched very, very discreetly?
I thought it was the hot tub.
None of you noticed. None of you noticed.
No, you didn't at TMI.
But-
Lindsay, TMI.
But but I got a kind of medicinal.
You will. That, as we said, the aftertaste is very much part of the way you enjoy beer. So a discreet belch is perfectly
But
allowed.
medicinal?
Yes.
Should it taste medicinal?
Yes, I mean, because again, it comes again from that monastic tradition that the monks were growing herbs and flowers and making medicines as well as brewing beer.
Okay.
So there are medicinal traditions. I mean, licorice flavours and those kind of
licorice.
which would have been used to make medicines more palatable.
Okay.
Also, very much a beer flavour in some beers. So, yeah.
So what's this next one then?
So
Do you want to show us the can?
our third beer is from the 5 Points Brewery in Hackney, and it's their IPA. So it's a fairly rich beer. We
Might not be bolting this one as quickly then.
This is not good news.
We'd normally do the strongest beer last, but we're doing this now because we've got some interesting flavours with our last two beers. So this is more.
Oh.
Right. So IPA. Jane, do you want to talk a little bit about IPAs?
Actually, I've just thought of something. Matt, could we swap the sour beer and have it next, and then have the porter as the last one? Thank you.
So you have to adjust your tasting notes accordingly as you post them on Facebook.
And we must
Sorry
say
to
thank
confuse
you to
everybody.
Borough Wines once again.
Thank you,
Cheers,
Borough Wines.
cheers
Thank
to
you,
Borough
Borough
Wines.
Wines.
Thank you very much.
For supplying us with such amazing beers.
Yes.
Thank you so much.
So this is an IPA, an India Pale Ale. Talk us
India
through.
Pale Ale. So stylistically, an India Pale Ale has nothing to do with India, by the way. Its name comes from the fact that it was that style of beer had another name, October beer, in the 18th century, and it was exported to India from the East India Dock in London because the brewer who was brewing this particular type of beer had a brewery at the East India Dock. So the ships going out to the Indies carried that type of beer. There's a lot of stuff on the internet that isn't actually correct about the provenance of IPA. So whatever you've read is probably incorrect. But stylistically, an IPA, a proper IPA, is this.
It stands
High
for
India
Pale
Pale
Ale.
Ale. So high in alcohol, usually above 6%, I would say, for an IPA. This one's 7.1. Very bitter. Can be aromatic. This is using modern New World hops, and usually this colour or slightly darker as well for an IPA. But bitterness is the big characteristic with this one. So give it a swirl around. Oh, this smells like an English IPA. This is such an English IPA.
Yeah.
Yeah.
molasses.
Yeah, I was going to say,
Yeah.
I went toffee, but yeah.
Treacle, toffee, yeah.
Molasses, definitely.
So if you get toffee off a beer, that's good. If you get butterscotch, that's bad because it's a fine line sometimes. But butterscotch should be seen as a fault, but toffee is fine. Toffee is a good flavour. Yeah.
It's like marmalade,
Yeah.
isn't it, as well? Like a bit
Yeah.
of marmalade that you're getting from it.
Yeah, absolutely.
And,
Lots of
yeah,
tropical fruit.
but
in
you
there.
know, very sort of cloying. It stays on the tongue for a long time, stays on the roof of your mouth, and
It's not my type of beer.
It's strong.
It's strong.
This is very my type of beer.
But it is lovely.
It's a lovely beer. Yeah.
It is lovely. It's
and a
just-
great beer with food. This would be lovely to have with
with
spicy food.
food.
Just
Yeah,
the beautiful
absolutely.
dal you've just served us, for example. This would go great with
or
yeah.
meat,
Yeah.
just like a nice steak or something.
And
Yeah.
there's quite an interesting kind of a transatlantic move with the IPAs, because the IPA was a traditional British style, and so a lot of the brands that you would see as an IPA over here, you know, Green King IPA, much more balanced, much more malty as well as the hops. But the Americans took our IPA style and have kind of sent them back to us with much more hops, much more of these flavours going on. So this is, I can say, kind of a British-American hybrid style. Is that fair to say, Jane?
Yeah, I'd agree with you.
Yeah.
an IPA is almost now kind of the default style of the craft beer movement. I mean, everyone and his brother is brewing an IPA. Default drink is almost an IPA.
And where is 5 Points Brewery?
5 Points Brewery are
They're
in
in
Hackney, yeah.
Oh, Hackney.
Just off Mare Street in E8.
Definitely, it makes sense that it would be good with spicy food because it's such a strong flavour.
Yeah.
I mean, it must be amazing with spicy food.
It is, and the sadness is, it's not. I'm not going to say that the beers you know from Indian restaurants, Cobra and Kingfisher and so on, are bad beers because they're great beers, but they're lager style beers.
Yeah, they are.
Yeah, they're very light.
And there is an argument that perhaps in kind of beers go so well with spicy food.
Yeah.
They're a perfect match.
Jerk chicken.
Oh my goodness.
Jerk chicken, man.
Dear me. We
Be
need some
amazing.
jerk chicken in the hot tub.
I
You were
know.
saying, Jen,
Fantastic.
it's much heavier on the tongue, this one as well.
Yes.
It really sort of does sort of give you a weight in your mouth, as you were saying earlier.
Mm.
And also the higher ABV, this is 7.1. So the bigger amount of alcohol you have, you'll also get a bigger mouthfeel as well. Just like, wine, if you have an 11% wine and then have a 14%, there's going to be much more body to that 14% one. Mouthfeel is what it feels like in the mouth. You talked earlier about the refreshing lightness of the lagers that you like.
Yeah.
You wouldn't describe that as light, would you?
No.
And that's the mouthfeel that we're talking about. So it's how much it fills your mouth and what it feels like in your mouth as well.
It's kind of richer and more
Body.
cloying. Which
Yeah,
is
yeah.
Here you go, Matt.
Well, apparently I lied, I did finish it.
Maybe it's just
That's-
evaporating because the
Yeah.
hot.
It
is. I think-
just disappeared.
I think the hot tub does make beer disappear very quickly. Yes.
I know. It's true.
Thanks, Matt.
So the next one is one I've definitely never heard of, which is this sour
we're
one.
going on to a sour beer now.
Never heard of this.
Jane did a fantastic sour beer tasting last week at the Imbibe show in London. So talk us through sour
Yeah.
beers, Jane.
Thank you. Never heard of a sour beer.
Sour beers are very popular currently, very trendy. You can get sour beers by having the lambic style that I mentioned earlier. Lambic is a Belgian style of sour beers, and the yeast that they're fermented with is wild yeast, which gives very unusual and unpredictable flavours to the beer. This one, and most sours now in the modern beer scene, don't use wild yeast. They use the cultured yeast, but then they add lactobacillus or some sort of microflora into the brew, which then gives the beer a sour character. Now, these beers might remind you of cider or
Wow, look
wine.
at the colour.
I describe sour beers as the bridge that carries wine and cider drinkers over to beer.
Wow.
Carries wine and
Cider
cider
drinkers over to beer. Just
Because if you're more familiar with the flavours, and there are people who say, "Oh, I never drink beer, but I like wine." So if you give them some of these kind of beers, and they'll try them, and they say, "Oh yeah," because the flavour notes are consistent with what they would expect from a
Right.
wine or a cider. So it's a way of there are people who I mean, we're a promiscuous nation. We drink a lot of different beer styles these days. A lot of drink styles. People move between spirits and beer and wine and cider quite freely, but there are some people who stick to their guns and only go for one. And for those people, it's kind of nice just to test their perceptions occasionally, isn't it, Jane?
This-
And give them something they're not
Where
sure
does the colour come from?
This comes from hibiscus flowers, so that's part of the ingredients.
Wow, the
So
smells
the beer is
extraordinary.
actually called hibiscus sour. It's 4.9%. It's brewed by Crate Brewery, and they're in Hackney Wick, just near the stadium, the Olympic Stadium. Now, if you didn't know this was beer, would you think it was beer?
No.
No,
Definitely not.
I think it was a cheap rosé.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I'm getting. I'm getting rosy notes.
No, it's very, very much. There's some very similar flavour profiles between the grapes that would go into a rosé and this, but there's also, but you've also got the interest and the sourness behind it. There's some really quite complex flavours
Wow,
going on
this
the back,
is
isn't there?
bizarre.
Yeah, it is.
It is almost like a rosé, though.
Yeah, no, very much in terms of the way it's been flavoured as
Yeah.
well. It's
It's the after.
My mouth is confused.
Yeah.
My mouth is confused.
It's the aftertaste that's really, it really
Yeah.
just opens, doesn't it? You just
Yeah.
get this flourish of complicated flavours and
Yeah.
It is definitely
It's
more
very
complex
light.
than a cheap rosé, Suzanne. That's for sure. But I understand what you're saying about the flavour profile. You would.
It's really, but it has the similarity with the rosé where it feels very dry. It's got it's got some rosé aspect to it in terms of flavour, but then it's got this kind of beer consistency, which really screws up your head.
So, if you're matching this with food, Jane, where would you go?
Oh my god!
Well, it's sour, so I would go with something. I'd use that sourness to cut through the texture of the food. So something light and fatty, maybe some pâté, or some cheese, maybe a camembert or a soft cheese, a goat's cheese maybe. You could have it with seafood or shellfish or fish, white fish. Actually, you could even have it with tuna, a tuna steak, I would say, even with that.
And because you've got that fruit in a dessert as well, I mean, with summer fruits, I mean, that would be fantastic.
Yeah.
And so
Definitely,
is
or
this...
eat a mess or something like that,
Are sour beers generally like this, or are they all very different? So you don't know what you're getting when you order one?
If you know a lot about beer, you can make a hazard a guess. I think John and myself would look at this and go, okay, we know what it's going to taste like. If we looked at a bottle of the Duchesse de Bourgogne, which is one of my favourite beers, Belgian, sour, red Flanders ale, tastes like balsamic vinegar.
Really?
Seriously, and that sounds revolting, but
does.
oh my goodness, it's aged in oak. It's the most complex, delicious, vinous, scrumptious. I dream about that beer regularly, by the way. I want
You need to get a life, Jane.
I know. I do have a life. It's a parallel universe of beer in my dreams. Me and the Duchesse de Bourgogne.
How are we doing on Facebook, Matt?
yeah.
Any questions?
It's so not all sour beers.
That's good, yeah. So I'm told Borough are watching us, so cheers against Borough Wine.
Cheers, thank you,
Borough.
Borough Wine.
Very kind. Cheers.
Some sour beers will pucker your face. They will make your face go in on itself.
Yeah.
It's so sour. This isn't too sour.
No, it's not.
This is not a really nicely balanced beer. Yeah, it's not. It's
really
not.
easy drinking. This is a good intro, I would say, to what sour beers are.
Yeah.
I mean, it's exactly what Suzanne says. You feel like it tastes like you're drinking rosé, but it's a beer.
Yeah.
So it's.
I would drink this instead of rosé, though, actually, because I quite like it. Because it's so wacky.
And you're drinking a wine glass size glass. There's a lot less alcohol in there than would be in a rosé. So you could drink more of it. Or certainly you could enjoy more of it.
I can definitely. The pâté idea is a nice idea. This and pâté I can.
Yeah. And beer. And most
I think
pungent pâté.
this in a nice brie. A nice
nice
brie.
Oh
yes.
and one of the tragedies of this country is that we talk about wine and cheese parties. I mean, beer and cheese is a fantastic match, and yet
this and brie, definitely.
Always go with the beer with your cheese rather than wine.
Stilton?
Yeah,
Absolutely,
I agree.
Stilton.
Oh, Stilton in the next beer that we're going to have.
Yeah.
Oh.
Dark beers, porters and stouts.
On that note, shall we start
Or
thinking about the
Stilton.
next beer?
No, I just need to finish this.
This is tragic. Throwing the beer away, although your plants are going to be very happy, Susan. Yeah, they're going to love all that beer.
Drunk.
The slugs won't come anywhere near. Well, the slugs will come near, but they won't go anywhere else.
Yeah.
Slugs
So
so
this-
and then they die in beer. They commit suicide.
So this is we hope that you've enjoyed it as much as we've enjoyed having this beer. And John, what is this last beer?
Our last beer that we're about to be served is from Beavertown Brewery in Tottenham, and it's a Smog Rocket Smoked Porter.
I love Beavertown names.
Yeah,
I have
yeah,
to say,
yeah.
they never disappoint me.
So smoked beers are an interesting kind of German tradition. Jane, do you want to talk a bit about smoked beers? This is something that we owe the Rauch beer of Germany.
Yes. This beer does taste of smoke, and in Germany they call them Rauch beers. Now, Rauch means smoke in German, and the way they get the smoke into the beer is through the malting process. Malting means that you heat your barley, and depending on the fuel that you use, if you use beech wood, for instance, which is what they do with these smoked malts, then you get this really wonderful smoky character to the barley, the malt. Now, going back a couple of hundred years, when malting in this country was done using wood, then most of our beers would have tasted smoky. They don't anymore, and it now is a specific style of beer, the German Rauch beers. This is a smoked porter, so it's an English equivalent of those wonderful smoked porters that you get in Bamberg, which is southern Germany. And you think, oh, that doesn't go with food. They actually do. They are so, so flexible with foods, these are. Now that you're all experts there in the hot tub, can you give me some suggestions of what you think this beer would go with?
I used to eat a cheese that had bits of ham in it.
Yeah, I was going to say bacon.
What was that?
There's a French cheese in there that has bits of bacon, but this is you should be getting the notes of smoky bacon.
Smoky bacon is what it's.
Yeah.
So yeah, smoked food would go with this, or barbecue, or mushroom dishes.
Yeah, barbecue.
Oh,
yeah, sounds like,
barbecue.
yeah, wood burning barbecue.
Yeah.
I'm also getting some sort of roasted coffee off the
Yeah.
which is quite interesting. The flavour interesting.
Yeah.
It's
some
so.
chocolates and
I'm
treacle,
almost
maybe.
scared to drink it.
But when you taste it, although you're expecting to be quite harsh and savoury because of that smoke aroma, there's actually some really nice sweet notes in it as well. It's a lovely
Oh my
balanced
god, it's like drinking bacon beer.
Isn't it? Frazzles.
Yeah.
Frazzles in a glass.
Liquid
That's what it's like,
frazzle.
Yeah.
Liquid frazzle.
It is.
It's like
So you know when you're really hungover and you need a bacon butter?
This goes really well with it. Yeah.
Oh my
Have
god.
this in the place
Yeah.
of your bacon butter.
This is amazing.
But porter is obviously a much wider style than just the smoked beers. I mean, and dark beers were with us a long time before light beers. So Jane, do you want to talk about porter and the sort of dark beer tradition?
Yes. The colour of beer comes from the colour of the malt that you use. Malt is the barley that you use to make the beer. And different colours of malt will give you the different colours of beer. So the malts used in this one are all the very dark malts. There'll be a pale malt there, but most of them are very dark. Now, in the days before you could get pale malts, which was all to do with the fuel that was used for malting, then all beer was dark. Porter, very traditional London style of beer, fueled the Industrial Revolution. It fueled all the street and market porters carrying things around London, hence they were called porters. This style of beer was named after those guys who carried things around London. Now, people think stout and porter are very similar. Stout originally just meant big and strong, and in connection with beer, it just meant big and strong beer. So you could get pale stouts, you still can get pale stouts, but most people associate stout as being a dark beer. So a stout porter was a dark beer.
And that was Arthur Guinness, who founded the Guinness Brewery 250 years ago. He took the London style of the porter and made a stout porter, and so Guinness Stout became the type of. When you get a kind of a one trick category where Guinness for so long dominated stout, you lose the fact that it can be a very very varied style. Yeah.
What? There was a sweet stout, wasn't there?
Mackesons, you think of?
Mackerson?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Milk stout.
Does this kind of
Oh, I see
tastes
what
a
you
bit.
mean. Yes, because actually there is some sweetness there.
Yeah, yeah.
The milk stout has lactose sugars in it, and they're non-fermentable, so you get a sweetness with the beer. There is sweetness with this because of the malts that they've used and because of the hops they've used aren't giving huge amounts of bitterness, so
Yeah.
your sweet malts can come through. I know what you mean though with the milk stout flavours.
Yeah, it's got.
I can see what
it-
you mean.
It was the only thing I ever got on prescription. Seriously. I had a stomach ulcer, and that was what I was prescribed, was a bottle of Mackesons a day, and I was able to get it on prescription.
Oh.
There's a long and proud tradition of that. I mean, during Prohibition in America, you could still get whiskey on prescription. So you'd go to the doctor and say you had a bad knee, and he'd prescribe you a pint of whiskey a week. So yeah,
what the doctor ordered.
But it comes back to that point I'm talking earlier about the monasteries and the fact that beer and spirits and wine, they were medicinal. They were being made by the guy who was also making the medicine. So there is a very strong tradition in that, and they were making a range of the food and drink and medicines all from the same plant basis. So,
Thank you. Well, that is our last beer, I guess.
Yeah.
It is a beer. Thanks to Borough Wines. I hope you've enjoyed this. You can catch up afterwards because it's going to remain on Facebook forever. And thank you to John and Lindsay and Paul and Jane for joining us.
cheers.
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 Good health, everyone.
Bottoms up.